Hey, have you heard about Betway? It is the sports betting app that backs you to trust your hockey instincts. Maybe you're an NHL expert. Maybe you know something about who's going to win games with the Ottawa Senators and the Toronto Maple Leafs, maybe the Canadiens and the Jets as well, the Flames, the Oilers, even the Vancouver Canucks. Yeah, maybe you consider yourself an NHL expert. Then you are going to love this You Lead, You Win offer from Betway. Betway will pay you out as a winner if a team leads 2-0 in any match involving a Canadian team with a $20 max stake. So head on over to Betway and bet your way. Must be 19 years or older to play. Please play responsibly.
Okay, so how about this name, JT Miller of the Vancouver Canucks? You briefly mentioned them earlier on.
There's tons of interest in him,
Yes.
but Vancouver's made up its mind. Like it's got to take a real package to get him. I mean, if you look at it, I don't know where he is today, but he's like a top 10 scorer in the moment in the league. If you look across like the last 3 seasons, he's a top 20 scorer in the NHL over 3 seasons. He's having a terrific year. And, he's got one more year on his deal. I think that's what makes him appealing if you're teams is that you're not getting him for one shot at a playoff run. You get him for 2 years. The Rangers have been in on him. I'd keep an eye on LA with JT Miller. I could see Minnesota going there. I think the Leafs have at least inquired on him. I don't necessarily think he's their priority or anything, but, that there's been some smoke around that. But, what Vancouver is telling teams is, like, we need a great young player back, plus, it's not – I just don't know if anyone's going to pay the price that compels them to make that trade. I mean, JT Miller's been the most productive Canuck going this year. And so – yeah, that one's kind of in limbo. Like, I feel like between JT Miller, Brock Besser, and Connor Garland, I could see one of the 3 being traded. I don't see all 3 of them being traded. There's different dynamics to each trade. Brock Besser's playing out his contract this year. He's an RFA. He's got a big qualifying offer in the summer, $7.5 million. Connor Garland is signed at a pretty good value contract. That Vancouver signed him after trading for him from Arizona in the summer. But, you have to want to have him for 3 or 4 years if you're making that deal. And so there's sort of different types of assets that all play forward. They all sort of address similar needs. But, it's definitely possible JT Miller's traded, but it's going to take like if LA's doing that deal, like it's like Quentin Byfield or something like that. You know what I mean? Like I'm not saying the Kings would do that, but this is what I'm only illustrating the point. Like, I think for the Leafs, I think Vancouver would want Rasmus Sandin as part of the package coming back. And if you're Toronto, you're like, Sandin's coming into his own. He's playing more minutes this year than in the past. Do you really want to trade someone right before the best years of their career to get a JT Miller? And I think it's going to be a big ask from the Canucks. And so, I'm not sure that anyone's going to meet that price. That's kind of where we're at with them.
Just want to emphasize for those last few players you mentioned, that's not at all what's being proposed out there. You're just trying to give an idea of what it might take to get a JT Miller.
Yeah. And if you radio me internet on that one.
Yeah. Come on, guys. Come on. Don't radio us, and certainly don't do the whole from TCJS BS. Like, don't do that. Okay. Don't do that. Anyway, Ben Chiarot of the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah. I mean, the Canadiens have wanted him traded by now, right? I mean, just because of protecting their asset, they did talk to Calgary about moving him the same weekend they traded Tyler Toffoli. It didn't happen. They couldn't find a way to make that work. But, I think the Canadiens' position has been with Chiarot is, they want the David Savard package, essentially, that Columbus got when they moved him to Tampa last year, the deadline. That was a first and a fourth, I believe. But I think they feel something like that is in order. We'll see if they get it. That this is where when I say, like, there's only so many first round picks that get traded. I mean, maybe they have to change their view on that. Maybe it's a prospect coming back instead. I mean, there's different ways to do this, but no one has stepped up, despite a lot of teams calling on Chiarot really all season long. No one stepped up and made that move yet. But I would be surprised if the deadline came without him being moved. It fits a lot of teams' needs. Rental, his contract is not too onerous, which is a key, because as we've talked, I mean, everyone will get bored of hearing about cap space at this deadline, but it's a real issue. There's not enough teams with enough cap space to make the moves they want to make. And so for all those reasons and the way Chiarot plays, I think he's a pretty valuable commodity. And and we'll see where he ends up. I wouldn't be surprised if Calgary took another run at him, honestly. But there's been a lot of other teams there. There's some feeling St. Louis is, perhaps one of the favorites to get him. But we'll see how it goes.
Do you envision with Chiarot, and you could pretty much put this out for so many other teams, you had mentioned about it being a buyer's market, that the prices are going to have to come down if everyone's just kind of holding back and thinking, man, like I don't have the cap space to make this move. Assets, certainly the asking price for certain assets has to come down, right?
Yeah, well, it's interesting how you handle that if you're a team with multiple players to move, right? Like, it's fair to say Montreal would like to make more trades than Chiarot. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to, because some of the other players, whether it's Jeff Petrie or whatever, they have a big contract to move out, and that might not be possible. But if you're Anaheim and you decide you're trying to move Lindholm and Raquel, like, in order to spur some action, you might have to lower the price. I think there's going to be a little bit of my sense is there's going to be a little bit of a staring contest, though, with some of the prices and the assets, and see who blinks, right? I mean, but this is just my theory, piecing together the information I have, that it's going to be a buyer's market. It just feels like so many teams have been out of the playoff race, like, for like half the season already. Those teams are desperate to salvage something from the year, right? To get some picks to start, building their program up to be better next season. So it just feels like there's a lot of inventory on the market, my friend.
Are GMs going to essentially stare at each other like that one scene in The Office where Michael Scott, Dwight, and Andy are just kind of doing finger guns at each other? It's probably going to be that, right? And like Pam comes in and she tries to like play along, and then she like walks out. It's probably going to be like that. Am I right?
I think it'll be exactly like that. You just pick your GMs that are in that scaring contest.
SDPN memes, get on that. PK Subban. What about PK Subban? Tom Fitzgerald, by the way, had a conversation with Pierre LeBrun of The Athletic, a good friend of ours. And Tom Fitzgerald straight up was just like, hey, man, look, I've had to talk with PK Subban, and they'll make a trade that's right for the organization, but not necessarily backing down from the idea that he could be moved.
No, but like, I read the story, my sense there, like, he was almost saying, like, look, I would trade him. And we've had the conversation that if something comes along that makes sense, we're going to do it. But, I think he recognizes that the $9 million cap hit tied to PK is going to be a challenge. And even if they retain half the salary, which they're able to do, even if it's double retain and he's traded to another team, still a pretty big salary. And so, I don't have a strong feeling he'll get moved. I think it certainly, obviously it's possible. They're open to the idea, but I just don't see it that price tag. I don't think it's very likely, quite honestly. But again, injuries pop up, or teams are in on someone else, and someone else moves. Like, a right shot defenseman is still a huge, valuable commodity in hockey. Most teams feel like they're one short because very few teams have three right-hand shot defensemen that they're comfortable with for each of their pairings. And so, it's possible, but I'd say not likely on PK.
Okay. What about Max Domi?
I don't really got a good sense what's going on there. I mean, it makes sense to move him, where he's at in as a free agent, where Columbus is at this season. But I really, like, it's been quiet around him. And so I don't really have good specific info for you, like what teams would be there. On the surface, it would make sense. Look, they exposed them in the expansion draft. But I don't know how that's going to play out.